Afternoon, V2. We're into week 6 now. How's your
Yeah,
how's your week 6 been?
yeah. Hi B1. It was a goodish week. It's never that good when you don't quite hit your tally of Ks, but must say, I shouldn't be too focused on the Ks at the moment. So I was generally happy with the week, and even more happy when I sort of reflected just on the month, because it was end of month as well, and I normally update my sort of kilometers and look at the number of runs I've done in the month. So I was happy with that. In that I'd got over the 200 mark, which is a nice number to get over. So I got to 214 and roughly 54 Ks per week. So it was reasonable considering some of the injuries and things I've had over the last few weeks. So I was pretty happy. How
Yeah,
about you?
yeah. Well, let me ask you two questions on that before I tell you about me.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask injury wise how you're tracking, because that's really good, given I know you've had a few issues, and then how you're going on your strength training was the other one, just quickly.
Yeah. Injury wise, up and down. I mean, I haven't resolved my Achilles problem, which is probably the biggest underlying issue that I have. So I am struggling to do those exercises and haven't really got into it. I've come up with a strategy though, which is to go to a physio class twice a week. So I'm trying to implement that strategy at the moment, but unfortunately the physio's got a 4-week wait period. So I was going, oh, right, okay, well, I think I better kick it off at home then before I can actually get into those classes. But it will be good in that it's just across the road and I can just wander over there, and they've got a bit of a studio and I can do group classes, etc. So that's a strategy, but it looks like it's going to take me a little bit of time to get into that. But yeah, the body's been a little bit injured, I have to say. So I'm kind of running injured, which is not ideal. So the idea is still to pare back and work on the strength. So it's the idea. I'm not getting too far at the moment.
Yeah, that's excellent, Kev. But I'll keep asking you that question, because I
Yeah.
suspect we'll be holding each other accountable on that strength training. Yeah, my week not as good as yours. I think I managed about 40 Ks for the week. I actually haven't looked at my month, but it hasn't been a great month. Yeah, I think as I said last week, I'm just struggling. It's been a bit of a grind at the moment for me, just trying to balance everything that's going on, work, general life things, running. So yeah, I'm just finding it a bit of a grind. And so I found myself reflecting actually on my Sunday run that I did around, this when you sort of push through, when it gets hard, and when is a time to sort of be a little bit kinder to yourself. And there's a really fine line, I think, between those two things. I've probably erred this week on being kinder to myself. So I'll give you a couple of examples. In fact, I was due to run the 10K at the Marathon Melbourne Festival with Bronte, my daughter. Unfortunately, she's been sick and couldn't run. She literally wasn't well enough. And so I could have turned up really early to run that on my own, obviously with thousands of other people. But just because I had a tough week and I didn't fancy all the logistics around that, I was kind to myself and pulled out of that. I then
Yeah.
I then decided I would do a nice long run same morning, setting off from home, and I'd start that early as well. And when the alarm went off, I was kind to myself again and turned the alarm off. But eventually I got there. I got out on a really nice run, and we'll talk a little bit more about the Melbourne Marathon in this call later. But yeah, so I got out and I did 14 Ks, which was really nice. And then I actually tried to do the ultimate act of kindness on myself this week by downgrading the Queenstown Marathon that I'm entered in for November from a marathon to a half marathon. I was just finding sort of the pressure of trying to stick to a marathon program, given what I've just sort of described around everything being a bit full on at the moment. a bit much. But I failed at that one because the half marathon is sold out, and so it's the full marathon or nothing. And so I will do the full marathon. I'm not sure how I'll be getting through that. It might be my slowest marathon to date, but I mean, it'll be great being in Queenstown and participating. So I'm not putting too much pressure on myself training wise. But yeah. So anyway, no, it's just interesting I think, we talked about this concept of pushing through when things get hard, but I do actually believe there are times, and it's still early for us in this journey, where you have to be a little kind to yourself. And, so that's the path I chose, albeit I'm not going to be able to choose that path too often, I don't think.
Yeah, but it's a long journey, and I think in my case, I've got to be more deliberate about actually doing that as well from an injury management perspective, but also from a mental health perspective. I think sometimes when things are, hectic on other fronts, you've just got to actually try and use the running more as a stress reliever and an enjoyment thing than right, I have to go and pump out this particular session because I've got a 50K target for the week. So I've also been doing a bit of that and not being too hard on myself around the pace of the run or any particular aspect of it. And I think, given we're early in our training, we can still afford to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I quite understand that. And Hill for Queenstown, what I would say as well is in a way, maybe it's meant to be. And so, working on a strategy for Queenstown, knowing that you're not going to be ideally where you want to be is then, working out what that goal is. And a friend has just completed Melbourne Marathon, and I know you wanted to talk a bit about that, and he was running somewhat injured, and he's had to recalibrate where he's pacing, and even came up with a bit of a walk strategy, and he's completed it and done a good job with it, despite it not obviously being his fastest marathon. So but yeah, it goes to show that you don't have to always go out and smash a marathon.
Yeah, no, spot on. And it's marathon season at the moment, as you know, Kev. So let's talk a bit about that, because as I said, I ran my Sunday run. I actually sort of ran towards where the marathon course was. So I actually had the chance to stop and watch a few of the guys. And there are plenty of people out there, obviously some people going after times and PBs, but the majority of people just having a great time and participating. That really sort of was evident to me, and everyone, I felt a little bit guilty to be a spectator, but it was quite interesting watching from a spectator perspective, and just seeing how everyone seemed to be having a relatively good time. Although I was at the 25K mark, so some people were starting to take a little bit of strain. It was actually quite interesting. I saw the 3:30 paces came along, and I've often run to a pacer to try and get a time. And watching it from a distance was quite funny, because it was a massive group of people, and you could see how focused these runners were in terms of hanging on to those paces. Some people were still comfortable, others were starting to take strain, but they were all determined to hang on to those paces, which was quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, and potentially that could be a mistake at times as well, because you're actually running to someone else's pace and you're not managing your own effort well enough. And but in other cases, I guess there are examples where people have done that successfully. I think you had an example of one of your mates who did that pretty successfully as well.
Yeah, and maybe just give it a shout out to James, who's part of our Running High community. So a little bit younger than we are. James is in his early 20s. So he did a phenomenal run. He's only second. I've actually had the pleasure of witnessing James's running from when he started running. He hasn't been running for that long. So he's done his second marathon. Last year was his first marathon ever, and he ran a time sub 3 hour for his second marathon, 2:59 odd. Just in swapping a few messages with him, he said his strategy was to go with the paces, and it worked really well for him. I think he's being a little modest because I sense that he had a little bit left in the tank. So he said he felt the whole way. But yeah, paces are a great strategy to follow if you trained for that pace. As you say, if you're not trained for that pace, it can make you go out too hard too quickly. So anyway, that's the Melbourne Marathon. It looked like it was a massive success again. The conditions were absolutely perfect. Would have been great for PBs, so I suspect a few people got PBs.
Yeah, and then of course last weekend was Berlin, and this weekend London. So some big performances there, particularly from the world's greatest, Eliud Kipchoge in Berlin. What a race, and it was great to watch some of the end of that, having run there in 2019 and watching him come through Brandenburg Gates. And yeah, I still can't believe that's 30 seconds he's taken off his world record. Some of those splits hill were insane. When we talk about our park runs, and anything sub 20 minutes is a very, very respectable park run. Kipchoge is running in the 14 minutes kind of region for park runs, but obviously stringing that together for 42 Ks. So yeah, his 5K splits there were between 14:08 for 5Ks to 14:43 being his worst 5K segment within that run. So yeah, world record 2:01:09. I don't think it's going to be beaten in a little while, and I think he's the second guy was literally over 4 minutes behind him. So fantastic.
Right. He's definitely the GOAT, that's for sure. It was interesting to watch. I was tracking that race as well, and he was obviously out under an hour for the first half. So I think there were people that were wondering whether he could go under 2 hours for an official marathon. Of course, he's done that in an unofficial run, but yeah, he slowed a little bit, and I suspect part of that was tough just being on your own. I mean, for that last bit, he was running on his own, and he did slow a bit, but still, and he's an absolute, one of a era, I reckon.
Yeah, I think some of the other stats around him is his stride length is near on 2 meters, and we measured out 2 meters the other day, and one of the guys in our run group just tried to jump 2 meters. He could barely jump 2 meters just from a standing position. So so if he's running that marathon, he's doing 20,000 steps, as opposed to what some people might do, near 40,000 steps. So incredible bounce, and pretty amazing.
It is fascinating to me that, and for people that like to get into the technicalities of it, because it's a function, obviously, your speed is a function of your cadence and your stride length. And so it is fascinating to me that cadence-wise, it's not off the charts higher than, good runners, but it's the stride length which is so much better than, your sort of average or even your good runners. So as you say, that bounce that he's getting, and I guess the faster you go, the longer your stride length, it sort of makes sense, but it is just, it's phenomenal, isn't it?
I think it's all in the shoes.
Yeah. Anyway.
But lastly, I just on London, also had a friend running London, and likewise did a phenomenal effort there in managing his pace and enjoying himself and getting a good balance of the two by the sounds of it, and the PB for him. And what I was interested to hear from a couple of people that I know doing it is what's the vibe of London like, and particularly post the Queen's passing, and apparently the vibe was incredible. So yeah, anyone's ever looking at doing one of the big ones, the Abbots, sounds like London should be on your bucket list as well.
Yeah, no, from what I've heard, I mean, you've done Berlin, I've done New York. New York's actually coming up in November again, but they all, I mean, I don't think you can go too far wrong with any of them, can you? But London sounds great as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, talking of marathons, I like to work sometimes in numbers and in multiples. So I did a 14K on Sunday, which sounds pretty weak, but it's a third of a marathon. So I was reflecting on doing that ×3 in Queenstown in a few weeks' time, which, as I said to you, feels like a bit of a stretch. But then I was reflecting on Comrades, Kev, which is obviously what we're really training for here. And Comrades, to put it into perspective, is 2 marathons back to back, plus a park run tacked on the end. And I have to say, they're not easy marathons either. They're pretty up and down. So for those people who know Great Ocean Road in Victoria, I suspect it's sort of like running 2 back-to-back Great Ocean Road marathons, plus a park run tacked on the end. So I'm trying to get my mind around that, and I can't at the moment. But anyway.
Yeah, well, no, it's hard. I mean, maybe there's a couple of perspectives on it. There is a guy, and I must admit I haven't followed actually how he went, but I think I mentioned him to you. He was running from Cape Town to Durban for this 22 Comrades, and he was running 19 times 90 kilometers, so 90 kilometers each day for 19 days to arrive in Pietermaritzburg. And then he was pumping out Comrades as the last one of the 20. So I'll have to report back on how he went. And so I suppose what we've got to channel is in the great words of Kipchoge, is that no human is limited, and that gives us hope, I'm sure. And doing some of the maths like that is always quite a good thing. I know I always try and say, well, it's just a park run left. And I think those sorts of things do help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Kev. I think that's probably a nice way to end it off, actually. Maybe we make that our quote of the week: no human is limited. And he's certainly shown the way, Eliud Kipchoge. So, let's see how we go in the next week.
Yep, no worries. Have a good running week, and be kind to yourself.
I don't seem to have any problem with that. Thanks, Kev. See you.
All right, see you. Bye.
Bye.